Good afternoon, YouTube, and welcome back to another video. Today I am bringing you guys something a little bit different. I'm bringing you guys a video on 5 things or 5 tips I have learned over my first full year of trout fishing or fly fishing for trout. As you know, we're going through some crazy drought right now, so I can't make just my usual casual fishing video or a county video. It's just a drought literally everywhere right now. It's really bad. But I figured, well, in between, I would make a video that I've been wanting to make for quite some time now, because I've come up now on a full year of purely fly fishing for trout, and filming it while learning it is pretty tough, but I feel like I've learned a good amount of general knowledge in my first year to share to any beginners out there who want to get into the hobby of fly fishing, because it does seem very overwhelming in the beginning. And rightfully so, because it can be. But I'm going to try to narrow these 5 things down to help any beginner out there to not feel so overwhelmed. And that's basically the goal of this video. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and thank you all for watching. Alright, so the first tip here is going to be on what setup to use. Now obviously this is just opinionated, there's really no right or wrong answer, it's just personal preference. But the biggest mistake most people make when getting into fly fishing or any other hobby for that matter is not spending enough money in the beginning. They want to get a cheap setup, and most people's excuse for getting a really cheap setup is because they don't know if they're going to be fully committed to this hobby. But if you're a person who's already an avid spin rod fisherman or just a fisherman for whatever, and you want to give fly fishing an honest try, you can't go super cheap on a setup when it comes to fly fishing. I made that mistake. I had my mother get me a $50 max catch fly rod setup for Christmas, and I picked that rod up once, maybe twice, set it down for probably around 3 or 4 years. Never wanted to touch the fly rod again because I realized how tough it was and how hard it was, and I'm like, I could just do so much better with a spin rod and slap on a waxworm and just catch trout that way. And I did that for about 3 or 4 years, and then I started getting bored of it, and I wanted to go try fly fishing again. And so I bought myself a Redington 9'5" weight, and while the rod was pretty decent, and so was the reel, I would get tangled every once in a while with the reel. The fly line was definitely not the greatest, and I've come to realize that the fly line is the most important of the 3 basics when getting a fly rod setup. Rod and reel are obviously important, but you can spare some expense on those and save it for the fly line. Eventually, after getting hacked to death on one of my popular videos with the fly rod, I went out and bought an Orvis Clearwater outfit, and the difference was crazy. Now, I don't condone bullying into someone getting like a whole new setup, but I'm glad they did, because it was like a night and day difference, and like how much easier it was when that line shot straight out the guides, landed on the water nice and soft, stayed float, didn't coil, and that Orvis Clearwater was like one of the best decisions I ever made. And then it just completely sucked me into fly fishing, and I don't think I picked up a spin rod very much after that. Um, Now, like I said, the fly line is the most important. I would go with an Orvis freshwater, clear water. I think they have one for like $50. If you're really sparing money, they do have like a $50 option. But if you have a little bit more to spend, I would definitely get like a Scientific Angler, which is going to cost you around like $100. Get their Scientific Angler lines. They have a lot of great lines. Or get if you have even more money, get like a Orvis Pro line. They're also great. I like the textured. Um, but get that with even like an encounter outfit. You're gonna only spend maybe $200 on the reel and rod. But if you spend at least another $50 to $100 on the line, you're gonna have a pretty decent setup, and it'll do you fairly well. So yeah, definitely don't be afraid to spend a little bit of money, because you're more inclined to get into the hobby if you do. Alright, so for tip number 2, I got presentation and stealth. These two kind of go hand in hand, because it's important to get your fly in front of the fish without spooking them, and also making it presentable to the point where they think it's a real fly. first off, you definitely want to fish upstream, just like how I'm doing right here, and you want to go almost directly upstream if you can, but never fish downstream. It's never ideal unless you have to, unless you can't access the creek or the spot you want to go to from upstream or from downstream actually, and then you have to fish it downstream instead of up. But yeah, always try to fish upstream when you can, especially on these smaller creeks. That definitely is a big thing, especially when the water is super low and clear like it is right here. And then another one is to another tip in this field is to false cast only a few times. The best thing to do is spill out a bunch of line and then let the line shoot through the guides and travel upstream within a few false casts, like maybe one or two. Um, but stealth is definitely one of the most important things. And if you're new to fly fishing, getting that fly to the spot you want to get to, like having a good cast, can be tough, especially when you're new to it. So my suggestion is to not go when the water is super clear and low, like it is right here. Unless you're like, until you get like better at it, don't go on a low, clear day, especially when the sun's out like this. Your best bet is to go on a cloudy, rainy, or maybe just after a rainstorm when the water is nice and stained, maybe a little high, and then drop an indicator rig. That's definitely your best bet if you want to get some fish on board and then practice your casting without having to worry about that stealth. And then you can just focus on the presentation, which is more important than what fly you're using. People will ask, what flies do you like to use? But in reality, it's more about the presentation than the flies. Flies are obviously important, and we'll get into those, but presentation is definitely the most important. One thing to help with presentation is to always avoid drag. Whether you have a dry fly on the surface or an indicator rig, drag is definitely going to hinder your chances of catching fish. One, with the dry fly, it's going to make it look unnatural. It's dragging across the surface. It's not naturally drifting. And then even with an indicator, if it's dragging, the nymphs are lifting up from the bottom of the water. They're floating higher. They look weird. They don't look normal. And a lot of times, snobby fish won't grab them. If you get lucky, you get a really aggressive fish. Maybe they will, but your best chance is to try and keep that drift natural and not have your flies dragging. And the best thing to do is just look up mending, like get the mending down, always trying to match that line with the fly along the surface, or at least your tippet with the fly. If you have a long leader, then you don't have to worry so much about it, and you have to mend less, and then your mends also don't move the fly too much. But yeah, presentation is very important, and obviously with the stealth, if you got those two things down where you can sneak up on the fish, you don't have to worry about spooking them. If you're like hiding behind rocks, or if you're just anything to avoid getting those fish to see you, and then when you hit that fly in front of them, and make it look as natural as possible, that is just the most important thing. Alright, so for tip number 3, I got an often overlooked one, and that is to talk to your local fly shops and guides. This is very important, and I didn't realize how important it was until I started doing it, because I had a couple months of fly fishing before I really went to any fly shops, because of the fact that I could just get everything online nowadays and look up everything online. It's just so easy to Google search or YouTube search anything and get it. But the first time I ever walked into a fly shop, AA Outfitters it was, to be specific, up in the Poconos of Pennsylvania. I walked in there and I spent over an hour talking to the guy because I had so many questions and he was there. There was no other customers at the time. And I just ended up spending an hour asking questions. And fly shops, like the majority of fly shops, are not afraid to point you in certain directions on where to fish or what to use at certain times, because obviously they want to incentivize you to go fly fishing so that way you buy more from the trade. It's kind of obvious. Now I understand that not everyone can afford guides, but they definitely do have their uses. If you can afford it, especially when you go to like a new area and you're trying to fly fish it, I always recommend getting a guide just for the first day, and then I end up trying to fish by myself afterwards. And usually I do better with the guide than I do by myself, even with the experience I have after. Um, But guides, yes, they're expensive, but I feel like they pay you in knowledge in a way, and also the experience is usually pretty good. Never really had a bad guide experience yet. But on the topic of fly shops, I feel like they're just so important, and it's just becoming harder and harder to find them with this like kind of antisocial time of age we have right now, where everyone just wants to go online for all the answers. And so a lot of local fly shops are suffering for that. And in my area specifically, I have to drive 45 minutes to get to any fly shop or even like a remote bait shop. Um, I feel like if you're in Luzerne County, Columbia County, or maybe even like Montour County, like that awkward central northeast area of Pennsylvania, you just don't have a lot of options when it comes to fly fishing, or fly shops, or like even bait shops in general. And with being on the topic of local fly shops and bait shops, I want to draw the attention of the next few minutes of this video to a local bait shop that just recently opened about a year or two ago, and they just recently started acquiring more fly fishing gear, and that is Heritage Baits and Lures, located in Columbia County, Pennsylvania. Um, Now, I'm going to have a little timestamp where you can skip this part, just because I understand some people may just want to listen to the tips or watch the tips. But I encourage anyone who's interested to stay and watch this little interview because of the fact that it is important, like I said before, on how we need to keep local fly shops and local bait shops open. And I would love to see a nice fly shop or just bait shop be stable and have a good supply in this area that's kind of a dead zone in Pennsylvania. So if you would be willing to listen to these next few minutes, that would be great, and I would very much appreciate that. All right, guys. Well, I'm here at the bait shop of Heritage Baits and Lures. I'm here with Arnie, and he's going to talk a little bit about the shop. So I want to hand it over to you.
All right. Thanks, Joe, for coming out and stuff like that. It's good to have you here. A little bit about the shop and the Heritage Baits and Lures is I started in the trapping industry a long time ago. And one time I was at a show, and I was setting up at a table, and I was talking to the guy who had the table, and then there was a kid came up, and he asked the guy how much was the bottle of lure, and the guy said $3.50, and the kid had like $2 and some cents on him. The guy wouldn't sell him the bottle of lure. And I was thinking to myself, this is our heritage. This is what we're passing on. Our tradition is what we're passing on. And that's how Heritage Baits and Lures started. So that's how we started, just more of the outdoors. I love to camp, do all those things. But in this area here that we were in, we had a couple bait shops did close up, and people kept saying to me, there's no place to get minnows, there's no place to get bait, there's no place to get hooks and stuff. And I decided, hey, let's take a look at, entertain the thought of opening up our own bait and tackle shop. And that's what we did back in October of 21. We opened up where we're at right now, down here. I'll put the plug in. It's 4640 Overwork Road in Bloomsburg.
Yeah, and we'll have the address in the description as well.
And now we make our own baits under Rocky River Baits is what we call ourselves. So and so we got into that, and then as an opportunity comes, we take a look at, is it worth us venturing into? And just last year, an opportunity came up to start carrying fly tying stuff, which you can see some of it behind us on the wall. And then also flies itself.
Yeah, and you get a lot of your stuff from local people and local businesses that come in and you sell their products too, like the pip spinners.
There's pip spinners, there's Mark spinners, there's Sereno spinners. This is our main spinner companies that we carry. I just don't go out and just buy and get anybody's stuff. They have to be a proven lure to me and stuff. Things.
And you do the same with like rods and I know you have a selection of a few fly rods right now they came locally, right?
Yeah, well, I have a fly rods down here, and we also have spinning rods in two of the popular trout lengths, in the 4'6" and the 5' lengths.
you also got, like, you're one of the few around here that carry the live minnows, and then also bait in bulk, which is like two of the biggest like things that draw me to here is those two products. I remember when I was spin rod fishing, I felt like I was here every weekend and getting like the bait in bulk, because going to gas stations getting like $4 or $5 containers for 30 wax worms, and then I come in here and get. You even have like what, 250 wax worms?
I sell. Right now we have them because of the summertime. They don't sell out as much. So right now we're just selling them in 100 counts.
Yeah.
But during their trout season, in the early part of the season, and then through ice fishing, we sell wax worms in the 250 count for like $11.
Wow. That's
$12 a container. We have night crawlers. We will have butter worms. We will have wax worms. You know.
Yeah, and like you get like a lot of your stuff coming in that spring when trout season's opening, and I'm assuming you would extend on like some of the flies and maybe some of the fly materials, and like, is that like an idea that you have as well?
Yeah, our idea for the whole fly fishing end of things is on the one wall we want to have is possibly all the top popular flies that there is, and then some oddball ones too.
Yeah.
When I say oddball ones, something that maybe if the hatch is only on for a short period of time,
Yeah.
that's what I consider. There's certain flies that it seems like the trout will hit all the time.
Yeah.
And we'll have some streamers, and then I have your basic
Basic
other things to it. The hooks I have it, I have the leaders, tippets, and then I'll have the indicators here, and then I have the sprays that go on dry flies,
Yeah, the floating.
sinking fly, yep, and the floating things that we have, and we want to expand that line out a little bit more, and then we want to expand more into the fly tying. We want to, if you have a guy that likes, I want to do this type tying, or I want to try this type flying. I don't know if I have enough of space, because I've seen some of these fly shops, but I want to carry some of the basics. I'm going to have some. I want to get some vices in here.
And you already have some of the basics of like the hackle and the dubbing and the beads.
Yep, and the beads, and we got some hooks over there that they tie up on. The thread we have, and then some of the different furs we have and stuff. Yep. If you're looking for that mom and pop feel, that shop where you come in and we know you and we get to know you. You just want to come and hang out. You don't even have to purchase anything. You just want to come and hang out in a spot like this where you just feel comfortable at. I tell everybody's welcome. You know, if maybe you're the type that likes going to the big box store, that's fine too. You know, our belief here and our mission at Heritage is we don't know what's going on with families when they come in the door for the last. It might be the last time. The family might be just hanging on by a little bit. We want to be able to give them the best service we can and introduce them to the outdoors, which they might say, hey, you know, we had fun today. Let's hang it out for, let's do this for another week.
Well, I guess we're going to wrap it up there then. Is there anything else you want to say? Or
No.
Got it?
No,
All right.
we're good.
All right. Well, thank you for watching this. If you made this far, I appreciate that. And yeah, let's get back into the tips on this video. Alright, so let's get back into the tips, and that brings us with tip number 4, and that is to use popular flies. There is a reason why these flies are popular, and that is because, well, they work, and they work very well. And I'm talking about your basics like your Adams, your parachute Adams, your blue wing olives, your midges, your prince nymphs, your chubby Chernobyls, and of course the dreaded mop fly and the squirmy wormies. These are all great flies, even if you want to consider the last few trash flies. I use them and they work great. And right here, I catch a pretty sizable rainbow on a size 22 midge, and I know I wouldn't have caught that trout off of any other fly, because I know rainbow trout specifically get really dialed in on these tiny, tiny midges. If I would have thrown any other fly at him, I guarantee you he would not have grabbed, because so many times I will cast several different flies and they won't be interested, but when you drift that little tiny midge next to them, they just want it for some reason. I don't know what it is, but rainbows really do dial on midges, and so do so many stock trout. But that being the midges just aside, uh, popular flies like the Adams, uh, I have a hard time pulling away from it, especially when there's a even like when there's a great hatch going on, and I'm using exactly what's hatching, and then I'm not catching anything, and then the moment I put on that little Adams, that size 14, size 12, parachute Adams, they just want it for some reason, and I'll catch them even though there'll be like a yellow sulfur hatch, and I guess it's just the silhouette of it. I really don't know what it is, but it just works so well. I can't get over it. But yeah, definitely use popular flies. Don't be afraid to go and use the dreaded mop or the squirmy wormy, especially when the water's stained or if the water's a little high or if it's just cold in general. And that's going to tie into tip number 5 later on. But yeah, just don't be afraid to use the popular flies that is in everyone's tackle box or everyone's fly box, and because it's in there for a reason, because they work. So definitely don't stray away from those. Alright, so tip number 5, and probably the most important tip, and that's why I saved it for last, and that is water temperature and water depth. If you are familiar with trout fishing already, which you most likely are if you're watching this video, you would know that fishing over the water temperature of 65 isn't ideal because of the fact that uh, first off, the bite is a lot slower, and second, you have a chance of killing them if you're not careful enough. And then also, anything over 68, you're really not supposed to fish just in general because the chances of killing them is very high. Plus, there's also like not much of a bite, anyways. So I don't really see the point in trying to fish when the water temps are over 68. But that being said, most people only know that much information when it comes to the water temperature, and the water temperature is the first thing I check when I'm on a stream, and that is because that's going to decide what I'm going to use that day and how deep I'm going to go, or if I'm just going to be dry fly fishing. The water temperature is over 55 degrees, and the water is clear and maybe a bit low, but not. It doesn't even have to be low, just clear. And over 55, I'm probably going to be using a dry fly, maybe a double dry, or maybe even like a dry dropper. But the moment I start getting hits on the dry, I'm going to just stick to that because that is by far the best fly fishing out there is getting that blow up on the dry fly. But anything under 55 is typically what I'm gonna most likely nymph, unless like the water is like clear and low. I'm probably still gonna use that dry dropper rig, but I'm gonna have that dropper like 3, maybe even 4 feet down from it, and then I'm gonna have the dry fly mostly as an indicator. I might still get bites on the dry fly, but it's most likely gonna be all nymph action for the most part, and just using that dry fly as an indicator. Um, but say if the water is stained or high, I'm gonna still just use nymphs regardless of the water temperature. Water temperature could be 64, and if the water is high and stained, which it most likely will not be that warm if it's high because the fresh rain will bring it temps to cool down. But I'm definitely gonna be nymphing unless I see rising fish. That's the only indication that I'm gonna put on a dry fly when the water's stained and high. Now, when it comes to really, really cold water temperatures, like anything under 50, really, the fish are really going to sit in those big, deep pools. They don't like to sit in that like shallower water. They like that when the water temperature is like over 55, 60. They like to sit in like the faster water because then the food is moving down and they can grab it easy. But yeah, in the winter time or in the late fall or in the early spring, they really do like to sit in those deep pools because there's not a ton of bug activity and they're kind of just resting there, conserving their energy. So you really just want to fish really deep. Euro nymphing is probably your best bet for that, and I'm definitely going to get more into that over this next winter. Definitely going to try to get more into Euro nymphing, getting those deeper pools, and trying to do a better job of getting those fish out of those deeper pools because winter fly fishing is really tough, and I got to really learn that over this past year. But yeah, that's definitely the basics when it comes to water temperature and depth. Just the colder it is, the deeper you want to fish, and the warmer it is, I guess the shallower you want to fish, if that makes any sense. But yeah, that's tip number 5. All right, so that was a lot of talking, but I hope you guys learned something if you're new to the hobby. Those are definitely 5 tips or 5 things that I feel like are the most important. If there's anything I missed, which obviously there's a ton I missed, I can't fit everything in one video, but put a comment down, leave a tip, or leave some advice that I could elaborate on, or anything like to help more people get into the hobby of fly fishing. Also, don't be afraid to check out that Heritage Baits and Lures. I'll have the link to their Facebook page and their email, and also the address to the place itself. They did have a website, but it's no longer operating at the time. But yeah, like I said, if there's any advice you'd like to add on to, just leave a comment down. Yeah, thank you all for watching, and I hope you guys learned something new today.